Welcome back to iGen Politics. This is a podcast that makes politics engaging and relevant for all generations. This is Victor Shi. I'm currently a sophomore at UCLA, was elected as the youngest delegate for Joe Biden, and also co-host this podcast.
And I'm Jill Wine-Banks, the author of The Watergate Girl, based on my experiences as the only woman on the trial team for the Watergate prosecution. Today, we have a very special guest, Stephanie Miller. She is, of course, the reason for the amazing Steph Heads, and I'm proud to say that she is my friend. Stephanie is the host of the eponymous Stephanie Miller radio show, the #1 progressive talk radio morning show in America. It combines humor and snappy political wit with progressive news and really smart political commentary. She is also the person who did 2 fantastic things for me. She pushed me outside my comfort zone when she had me and Representative Jan Schakowsky doing comedy as part of her sexy liberal blue wave tour, and she gave me the beautiful Jill's pin that I'm wearing today. It signifies the blue wave that I, Victor, and I hope all of our listeners want, but more importantly, it was her 96-year-old mother's, and for those who don't know, that makes it super special because Stephanie's father was a Republican, and he was a representative from New York and was Barry Goldwater's running mate in 1964, which means that I'm wearing a Republican pin, but her mother now supports both Stephanie and indirectly me.
We know you're going to enjoy this episode. We are going to begin by talking about Stephanie's early life in politics, her career in comedy, and what it's like to be the host of a radio show with over 6 million listeners, as well as her thoughts on radio versus television and right-wing radio, as well as about how to talk to Trumpers. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us.
So, Stephanie, you live a fascinating life. Anyone who listens to you each morning or follows you on Twitter knows that you are very in tune about the issues of the day. I suspect that part of your passion for politics has something to do with your father, William Miller, who was a member of the House of Representatives, and then when you were a toddler, he was Barry Goldwater's running mate, which means he was, unlike you now, a conservative Republican. But did conversations with him inspire your political interests?
Oh, God, no. Here's a fun fact for you, Jill. We used to get a Christmas card from Richard Nixon every year. And I just assumed...
Oh, good for you.
I just assumed everyone did.
He never sent me one, Stephanie.
That's so weird, Jill. I would think you'd be at the top of his list.
Right.
No, let me tell you currently about my glamorous life. I have upstairs some dead rats, which is what's been going on. I think it's my fault for calling the current Republican Party a big bag of rats every morning on the show. I call big bag of rats, bite, bite, you're all equally awful. And now I actually have a rat apocalypse going on in my house. But that's not important now. What's important is what's happened to this Republican Party, right? Yeah. Since my dad's day.
Yes.
And
yes.
And
well, did you start out as a Republican?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, yes. I didn't, I was just a dumb USC kid. What did I know, right, Victor? You go to UCLA. You know from dumb USC kids. What the hell did I know? University of Spoiled Children? I don't know. I voted for Reagan. My daddy was a Republican. I thought I was a Republican. All my liberal friends, Jill, blame me to this day for voting for Reagan. I'm like, I'm not the only one, and I was only 21.
We forgive you. We forgive you. You've made up for it. You definitely have.
Well, anyway, but I don't think I was, as attuned to politics. I always say that, I thought I was going to be Carol Burnett, and then all my dreams died, and I ended up in radio. But Carol Burnett went to UCLA, Victor.
Wow.
I'm sure you know. Yes. But I did not get political. I always say, Jill, that it maybe became around the time of that really mean Pat Buchanan speech at the Republican convention that was so sort of exclusionary, and I'm not even sure I was aware I was gay then, but it just seems so mean-spirited and exclusionary that I think it's been gradual, my politics, to who I am today. But I lost my dad when I was 21. I had just graduated from USC, so I didn't, it's not like we had political conversations. There wasn't any sort of, I so wish in the years since then I've been able to talk to him, certainly about his his Nuremberg prosecutor days, because we have people with Nazi flags in the streets calling themselves fascists. I just can't imagine what my dad would think.
It's amazing because Goldwater, who to me was the epitome of just off the end of the world conservative, now looks really good to me.
Yeah.
But
well,
let's look at some of your early.
But even I was going to say,
years,
Jill, look at that connection, and this is why we fell in love. And I don't mean that in a gay way. Although, can I take a moment to say that your rack looks spectacular in that Steph Head T-shirt, the official Chicago Steph Head.
Excellent.
And you're wearing my mom's pin. I gave you my mom's pin for the Blue Wave.
I am. Exactly. We're going to talk about that later. And but let's start with, I think Victor wanted to ask you about how you started out.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
as
Jill,
a comedian.
I was just going to say, I was going back quickly to how we fell in love, is that it is a weird thing that there's one degree of separation, that it was Goldwater, my dad's running mate, that went to Nixon and said it's time to go. And so you and I have had a lot of discussions about that Republican Party in this one, and how, Trump wouldn't have gotten away with this if he didn't have Fox News and this version of the Republican Party.
That is so true. Yeah. So true. And you've come a long way since then, too. Since your father was, you were 3 years old when he ran for vice president?
I always say, Jill, I was only 3. They can't blame me. Yeah. I hadn't said anything yet.
Well, go ahead, Victor, let's talk about the early parts of your life. You were a comedian first performing a sketch at your high school called Tom Between Two Lovers. You said that performance...
Torn between
two lovers.
Look how... how cute and little are you? You don't even know that song. It was a song called Torn Between Two Lovers.
Well, so talk about that first time and how you approached comedy in high school.
Well, as I said, I wanted to be Carol Burnett. I wanted to be a comedian, and that's why I went to USC. I got a degree in the drama, in the theater. Yes, that particular Torn Between Two Lovers, my mom sewed like 10 dresses up the front and down the back. Sewed them back, we tore them, and then sewed them back together again. So every time there was a chorus, the boys came out from both sides of the stage and pulled my dress, and it pulled the dress off. So that... And I always say that's the last time I ever wore a dress, or that a man ever tried to rip one off me. But anyway, that's a gay joke, Victor. But my point is, God bless my right-wing mom. She was always my biggest fan and costume designer.
Well, so, after graduating from high school, like you said, you went to USC, which is this school that I guess goes unnamed at UCLA. How did your time there shape your interest?
Oh, listen, mister, when you wrote to me, I said, you are dead to me. You're an enemy to me, but then you said the magic words, Jill Weinbanks. I was like, all right, yes.
That is what saves me.
That's like saying abracadabra. Jill Weinbanks?
Exactly. So what did your time at USC, or I guess, how did your time at USC shape what you wanted to do after?
Well, as I said, I always say radio is a complete accident until they started paying me a lot of money, and then it wasn't an accident anymore. No, it just was, my dad had passed away suddenly, right when I graduated from USC, and so I went back to Buffalo, and I started just doing bits on a radio show there, and that's how my radio career started, sort of by accident. And then I went to Rochester, and then Chicago, and New York City, and Los Angeles, and I ended up, again, doing sort of, I guess, sketches, or as Carol Burnett said to me, "You're the Carol Burnett of radio," to which I cried for a solid hour.
That's like a dream come true.
I know.
To have your idol do that.
Well, her daughter Jody Hamilton is one of my regulars, who is so smart and funny. And of course, she had Carol call me as a surprise on my birthday, and I'm sure I cried through the entire thing. But I said that to her. I wanted to be you when I was growing up, but then all my dreams died. And she said, "Oh, honey, you don't want to be the next Carol Burnett. You want to be the first Stephanie Miller." You're the Carol Burnett of radio. And so, but I thought, that is, Victor, a thing, for you youngins out there, is that, sometimes your dreams don't turn out exactly the way you thought. Sometimes they're different. Sometimes they're better in some ways, but sometimes it's not what you envisioned. I didn't go to school for radio. That's not how but then at some point, Jill, one of my best friends said to me, like, everything you've done sort of came together. Your comedy background and theater background and performance background came together with the politics that's in your blood. I never thought of going into politics or being in political talk, but I think at some point that passion just started when I saw what became of my dad's party. And, I just know what kind of man he was. And, Jill, I was just saying today on the air, I just cannot imagine what he would think of these circus clowns like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene in the Congress. I mean, it is so beneath the dignity of that body. I mean, whether it's intellectually, just they're, all of it, racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia. It's just, I keep saying that I feel like they're terrorists. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but they're either actual terrorists from January 6th, they support the terrorists of January 6th, they're economic terrorists surrounding the debt limit, they're willing to blow up the full faith and credit of the United States. I feel like they're COVID terrorists. I mean, I've passed the point, I don't know about you guys, of knowing how to forgive the right wing and the anti-vaxxers that have kept this country in a pandemic and have it continuing now for 2 years because they won't get vaccinated.
Well, what's scarier to me is than the leadership, which is scary enough, is how many voters believe them and are supporting them. That is terrorizing to me. But
we talked about what would have happened with Watergate. Nixon would have gotten away with it if there was Fox News and right-wing radio. I mean, Donald Trump says this election was fraudulent, and what is it, Jill? 68% of Republicans believe that now, based on nothing.
Exactly. So it isn't the Republican Party of your father, that is for sure, or your mother, whose pin I proudly wear, despite its Republican heritage.
Jill, here's a question on the big lie. How bad a lawyer do you have to be to lose 60 lawsuits in a row? Just out of curiosity.
One who will get disbarred. That's what. And fined and penalized for having brought frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah, but, I'm happy that's starting to happen, right?
Yeah,
that you can't go in a court of law and lie.
Yeah, exactly. So you've performed all over the country, and you did some acting too. But let's talk about your comedy stuff. And I want to talk about the Sexy Liberal Blue Wave Tour, which I was lucky enough to be a part of for 1 year during the pre-COVID era when they were in-person shows. And of course, my big admission is I was scared to death doing that because it was so far out of my comfort zone.
Oh my God.
Well,
Victor,
other than falling flat on my face.
I do remember Jill telling me that, yes.
However, she got a standing ovation both for tripping and getting up and also for being Jill Winebanks.
And for sitting on stage with a bloody knee from falling flat on my face. But okay, so that was my first entry into the comedy
Victor,
arena.
Let me preempt her humility. She was great. She's funny. She was smart. People love her. She's done events with the Chicago Stepheads that they just cannot say enough about how lovely and down to earth and warm you are. And they can't believe it. They literally I can't believe Joe Winebanks showed up to this or that or
they're a smart group who follow you and adore you. Aww. And so let's talk about some of your acting, because you appeared as a nun in a TV movie called Shattered Vows and as a nurse on General Hospital.
All right, hang on. Let's just break down this whole myth. I appeared as myself on General Hospital as a nurse, but it was like a radio promotion. I don't even remember. All I said was, I think my line was, "Doctor, here's the file." That was it. That was the extent of my General Hospital, and it was again, I don't know, it was some DJ stunt thing we did, and then Shattered Vows. Yes, I played a novice nun. However, I should correct you. I was an extra. I did not play a role. I was an extra, and it was.
But were you in costume?
Yes, it was a very scratchy wool, entire head to toe novice nun outfit, and we were filming in the valley in 108-degree heat. God. And my biggest claim to fame is Valerie Bertinelli was in that movie. And back then, Victor, you'll love this. We had payphones. We didn't have cell phones then. It was in like 1983.
That's like a whole different world to me.
And I let her cut in front of me at the payphone to talk to Eddie Van Halen, her husband. Is that a cool story?
Wow.
Whoa, that is.
And then
that
also,
is.
I was the novice nun cleaning the floor next to Patricia Neal, the amazing actress. And she was getting on a little on in years then, and she kept forgetting lines, and I kept filling them in for her. I was like on the floor, like cleaning up the floor, and I would whisper up to her line because I remembered it.
Oh,
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is an amazing story. So I want to talk about those experiences because as a lawyer, many lawyers, particularly litigators, take comedy training or acting training because they feel like that helps them as a lawyer. And, the Chicago Improv is a big place that a lot of people go for training.
Yeah.
What skills did you learn that have helped you in radio and as a political commentator?
Well, I guess like I said, Joel, like my best friend saying that sometimes, like not by planning, but that all my kind of skills came together. But yeah, my background is in theater training and improv. I was the youngest member of LA Connection here, which is kind of LA's groundlings, that you have in, Second City that you have in Chicago.
Second City, yeah.
So I did LA Connection. I actually did do groundlings for a little while as well. Uh-oh, did I hit something bad here? No, I'm good. Okay. Yeah. So I did do all of that. I mean, and I guess it played into because it's all still. I mean, I still consider my radio show a comedy show. I mean, I always say that it's more. If you can make people laugh, they don't realize they're learning something. I think on either side of the aisle, if you're just doing talking points, it's just boring. If you're preaching to the choir or you're just, I think that's. We seek to make entertaining radio first. I mean, I happen to have a strong liberal point of view, but more importantly, is this entertainment? I mean, Rush Limbaugh, as much as I couldn't stand anything he did or stood for, he was a really good broadcaster. He was an entertainer, and that's why he had the huge following that he did. So
do you suggest for Victor's generation, trying acting class or theater classes, comedy classes as part of stuff that would help them in almost any profession they enter into? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, Victor, Jill's an example of someone that is A, a really good lawyer, and B, really good on TV. Mm-hmm. Rudy Giuliani, follow along with me. Not a good lawyer, not good on TV. Have you ever seen Jill Winebanks with shoe polish running down her face? No, you have not. She always looks exquisite.
Hopefully it'll never happen. We have to hope. I can't even imagine. But I think your lesson of life is really important for Victor's generation because it is how all these disparate elements of your life came together into a new career. The same was certainly true for me. I started out in journalism, ended up in law, and now I'm in journalism. But all the skills I learned in journalism and in law school are essential to what I do now. And so,
and also,
everybody should realize,
author and, a movie star soon.
Well, we'll see about that. But.
Victor, the difference is everything's worked out for Jill. For me, what I found in my career is if God shuts a window somewhere, he shuts a door too, and I'm fucked. So that's what I've found. Jill, everything.
Seems to me you've done pretty well, I would say.
Accidentally. No, I actually, it's funny. I actually do love what I do. I mean, I'm very passionate. I always say, how lucky is that? I get to get up and tell fart jokes with a couple of my best friends every morning, and I get to talk to amazing people like Jill. I mean, it's, I think I have some of the smartest, funniest people in the country, as my guests, my regulars and semi-regulars. And so I do love it. But like I say, Victor, it certainly is not what I planned for, what I thought my career would look like. When you bring up acting, let me just point out I was really a bad actress. So my favorite is we had Brooke Shields on. I can't remember when, for a book or something she was doing. She's one of the nicest people in the world. And I was telling her I was up to play the Kathy Griffin role in Suddenly Susan, her sitcom, her best friend. And I said, I'll never forget. My agent said, they really loved you, but they think you look too much like Brooke. And I was like, in what universe do I look like Brooke Shields? Because that's fantastic. But I'm like, and also Kathy Griffin is much better in that role than I would have been.
Kathy's one of our guests in the
We
past,
love
and
her,
she
yes.
is terrific. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, us too. I mean, she's boy, it's amazing, right? The comedians, right, Jill, have become the First Amendment warriors in some ways. That you're like,
Exactly.
really? She held up a stupid Halloween mask with ketchup on it and lost her entire career practically. And you look at what these members of Congress,
Paul
Jill.
Gosar,
I don't know what the line is, right? What's actionable, but these aren't jokes. The beheading AOC and putting targets on members of the squad. I mean, it's I don't know what that line is, Jill, legally, but they sure seem like death threats to me.
I'm afraid to have this Supreme Court make that line because and when you mention the First Amendment, we all have to worry about what's going to happen to the establishment of religion in America after the last argument this week in the Supreme Court, where it looks like they're going to say, the state has to fund religious schools. And that's the end of our First Amendment. But anyway, Victor, take it away, Victor.
Well, she just went dark, didn't she, Victor?
Well, we'll get into something lighter, which is when you first entered radio, you said somewhere that it was an accident until they started paying you a lot of money, and then it wasn't an accident anymore. You went into radio in 1983. Tell us what your first radio position was and what you thought of it.
I'm a capitalist and a socialist. It's quite a combination. I did bits or little skits, as my mom would call them, on the Sandy Beach Hot 104 morning show in Buffalo, New York, everybody. And I would do really kind of, I'm sure they're in the Smithsonian now, but I would do like traffic, Katharine Hepburn and the traffic copter and be like, it's going to be a long ride on the Skidjackwadah this morning. I would do Linda Blair with the weather. It's going to be hot as hell this morning. Just, really Hall of Fame stuff. And that's how I started. I started doing bits on the radio, and then I became Jill, Sister Sleaze on the Brother Wee's Morning Circus in Rochester, New York, just so you know who you're talking to.
Okay.
And yes. And then, it went from there. And then I got, my own show in Chicago. And then on Hot 97 New York, everybody, I got my morning show there. And then I think it was 94 was the first time when I moved back out here, when I started in talk radio. And I was, first of all, I like the first segment of a talk radio show is like 12 minutes. I was used to music radio. So I would be like, blah, 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 blah. Is there a song? Do I keep talking? Oh, me again? I keep talking. Okay, talk. So I'm like by myself. I have to fill like 12 minutes. And so that's when I started getting political. And it was like the OJ trial was going on out here. And so there was also kind of a lot of comedy in that, darkly. But remember all the witnesses in that, Jill? Remember? Blanco Branco.
Yes.
That's all I saw. Blanco Branco.
That was a great cast of characters to report on, I'm sure.
Yeah. But anyway, that's when I started doing talk radio, was out here, and then I got my own late night TV show from Disney opposite Leno and Letterman. What could possibly go wrong? That lasted for 13 weeks. And
so you obviously weren't afraid to make your political views heard on your own radio show. How common was it for radio hosts to talk about politics, and did you ever find that uncomfortable?
Well, I mean, I was the only liberal, really, even back then in talk radio in Los Angeles. But back then, again, it was more sort of everything was the OJ trial, so that wasn't necessarily really political. It was. And again, we sort of focus more on the comedic elements of the trial, the circus surrounding the trial, And then I'm trying to think, then when I went to ABC, I got my own syndicated radio show in the late 90s on ABC Radio Network, and that was much more political. But again, I was the only liberal on ABC where, Dennis Prager and Larry Elder and everybody, that's who I worked with. And I still had the highest ratings on there, but I was the only liberal. But the syndication didn't work because I could only get like 12, 14 stations because they would say she has the best ratings on the station, and they're like, we don't care, she's liberal. We can't take that here.
Wow.
And so, that's been I've had to, Victor, you kids these days with the podcasts and the whatever, it's, we've had to, but that's what we got to do is like, you diversify into Sirius XM podcasts, apps, Progressive Voices app, Sirius XM, Free Speech TV. Like you have to have a lot of platforms as a progressive to stay viable. We don't have conservatives. Quite honestly, you can be a really crappy host and get like 500 stations because they're all right-wing stations and they need to fill time.
Wow.
I mean, if I could tell you how many times a radio person told me you would be a multi-millionaire if you just tomorrow said I'm going back to my Republican roots.
Really?
And I'm a right-winger now. They said you'd be on 500 stations tomorrow if you,
Wow.
disavowed your liberalism and said, I decided I'm, a Republican now.
So is it better now with Sirius? And you started the Stephanie Miller Show, managed by Democracy Radio and WYD Media Management.
Yeah.
Who was your audience, and what were your goals when you launched that show? That was
it's the same.
That was about
same show I'm doing
20
now.
years ago.
Yeah, it's the same show I'm doing now. Yeah, this show has been going for this particular version like 16 years. And we started with Air America at the same time as all those shows. And frankly, the people that were good broadcasters have survived, like me and Tom Hartman and Randy Rhoads and, people that, other people that are on Serious Progress or on Free Speech TV. But, that was the same thing. We couldn't get enough stations to stay viable. So I will say I'm not making millions like right-wingers, but thanks to the loyalty of my audience and, their supporting our advertisers, I'm able to, knock on wood, stay viable.
Wow. And are you one of the only women in this area, or are there other women in the liberal talk radio
Yeah.
area?
Oh, yeah. Randy Rhoads is one of the best. She is also on Free Speech TV. And, certainly Amy Goodman's on Free Speech TV. We've got Zerlina Maxwell, as you know, was on
right.
And Jess McIntosh was on Sirius XM as well. It still is. Sorry. So yeah, I used to be the only one. I mean, I used to be literally like the only woman in morning drive in major markets almost that was the main host of a show. So Jill, you know what that's like. You were the Watergate girl. You were the girl.
So compare your radio show to like if you did a podcast instead, or are podcasts competition for radio now? What's the business model?
Well, it's kind of all the same. I have a podcast too, in that's just another form that the content comes in. Like as you know, Joe, we call it Stephanie Miller's Happy Hour, and it's that's usually just
right.
Now it's just our best interviews of the week, but a lot of that was just a separate interview thing that was podcast. I have the Sexy Liberal Podcast Network with all of the, a lot of our regulars that have shows on my podcast network. So I think podcasting is just I also sell the StephCast, which is a commercial-free version of my radio show. So that also keeps me viable. And it's called a podcast, Joe, but it's actually my radio show. It's just my commercial-free version of my. It's only $4.95 a month if you buy a year in advance. Everybody, we still have never raised the price. It's a bargain.
That is a very good bargain.
Yeah, but anyway, so no, so I wouldn't say podcasts are competition. It's just I'm on like I said, a bunch of different platforms. Sirius XM. I'm on terrestrial stations, as you know, Jill, WCPT in Chicago. There's other stations in around the country that we're on. So we're on terrestrial stations, Sirius XM, the Progressive Voices app, the iHeart app, on stephaniemiller.com, Free Speech TV. You know what I mean? We have to kind of cobble stuff together on our end.
Excellent. And we're going to post all of those on our show notes so that our listeners can tune into you on a regular basis.
That would be fantastic.
They will learn a lot and laugh a lot at the same time.
Does anyone want to come and get some dead rats at my house right now and rebait some traps?
I just want to know if you think that the Republicans, as they exist now, and I hate calling them Republicans because whoever they are, the Trumpers, do you think that they actually maybe sent rats to your house?
Yes,
or do you think it's just...
I believe in every conspiracy theory out there, Jill. I heard it at my QAnon meeting. Yes, I have a child sex ring in my pizza basement with my pizza rat. Jill, what has happened? There's people waiting in Dealey Plaza for JFK Jr. to come back. Has this many people always been crazy? Were people this crazy in the Watergate era, but we just didn't know about it because of no social media?
I don't think so. I don't know if we just didn't know, but I don't think so because we basically had one set of facts back then. We didn't debate facts, we debated policy implications.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of, I think Victor wanted to pursue that a little bit about how siloed we are now.
Yeah, sure. So radio is, I think, like all media outlets now, in the sense that people select what they want to hear, what they already believe, and listen to just that point of view. So you have people who listen to you and receive what I consider facts, and those who listen to conservative talk radio and receive a completely different set of information, which they call facts but aren't supported by evidence. Was that always the case? And if not, when did this actually become apparent?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I talk about a lot on my show is that, I just don't feel, Jill, like we're being helped at all by mainstream media. It's just they're so invested in this, both sides do it, and the Democrats do it too. I'm like, really? Name one Democrat that's made a death threat or joke about somebody on one of their colleagues. I mean, it really is not, and I think Jill's absolutely right. There used to be one set of facts. We argued about our points of view about that. I mean, how do we continue to have a dialogue with people that believe the last election was stolen based on nothing? How do we talk to people that buy $110 bags of magic dirt to roll in or horse paste to eat instead of taking the vaccine? We didn't eradicate smallpox and polio through herd immunity. We eradicated it with vaccines. I mean, we could have done that with this, but again, if we had Fox News, Jill, not only would Nixon have gotten off, but also polio would still be here.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's true.
It's depressing to tell someone your age that, Victor, but it really is a depressing time for that. And I'm sorry, it's not just we have these facts and they have those. Theirs are complete nonsense. They're lies. It's not being partisan to say horse paste doesn't cure COVID and to say, this election was not fraudulent. Joe Biden is the legitimate president. I mean, there's just, I don't know. That's what I mean. I don't know how we get, they just did a poll of younger people, Victor, saying that, and I guess they're saying Democrats in that poll, younger Democrats were more partisan, meaning they wouldn't be friends with or date somebody. But again, Jill, I guess it's partisan again to say that, but it's because of that. That you go, I don't know how to make common cause with people that march with Nazi symbols and believe that JFK Jr. is coming back and that COVID is a hoax.
And you mentioned Rush Limbaugh, who sort of was the architect of right-wing media and a prominent voice. Is there anyone, now that he's left his legacy, he's passed on, but how harmful was he, and who do you think is taking his place? Who's equally dangerous now?
Well, I mean, Hannity, obviously, and he also does radio. Laura Ingraham. I mean, I blame myself for Laura Ingraham, by the way. When I used to host Equal Time with Baby Buchanan on CNBC, Laura would sometimes fill in for her. And she was awful on television. She used to stumble, and we would have to start over, even though it was supposed to be live to tape. And I was incredibly nice and supportive to her. I'm like, I blame myself for this.
Oh God!
But I just think what they do, Jill, is again, is it not? I guess is it not legally actionable? What Fox News does is just lies and misinformation that is killing people.
Well, some of it is, obviously. There are lawsuits pending that have gotten, it's not just Fox, but OAN and others who are being sued by the Dominion and Smartmatics. And I think there's an individual lawsuit now, too. So maybe I think they've changed some of what they've said about the election as a result of it. And maybe they'll be forced to change what they say about the vaccine. Hopefully so, because many people believe it.
But I honestly don't know, Victor, how we get back to a common set of facts. I don't know. I think we're all in our bubble. I mean, I'll say I'm guilty of it because of my blood pressure. I only watch MSNBC. I sometimes watch CNN, but like I can't watch Fox for any period of time. I can't physically handle it. But that's what they say. We're in our information bubbles and we have two different realities. And how do we talk to each other?
It's a completely different universe. Do you ever, I guess, on your show, do you ever try to reach the other side, or do you think it's pointless and that everyone's basically cemented in their silos of information?
Well, I have right-wing callers, but I just play with them like cat toys and then I hang up on them. I play with them for my entertainment pleasure. And then I hit the dump button.
So I have one last question for you, which is, as you mentioned, you came out as gay. You announced that, you said, I realize that I can't authentically talk to my listeners about these issues anymore without walking in my truth. I just can't stand on the sidelines in an unbiased observer. So I want to talk to you about how you came to terms with coming out and what advice you would have for others who are struggling with sexual identity or who know their identity but have, for one reason or another, remained silent about it.
Well, it's interesting. My friend Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, just came out, and she's been with her partner Terry for 20-something years now, and she was married to a man and has a daughter, and I don't even know how she classifies herself. I don't know that necessarily gay, but we had long conversations about how, ironically, we were in an era when, like, whether it was my radio show or my late night show, it was marketed to men. My ads said, making men rise in the morning. Disney geared my late night show to men, and so then we had a legitimate fear of professionally, obviously. I remember a Disney executive calling me in a panic saying, "Did you just come out on the radio?" And I was like, "What? No, I was just talking about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and how I think it's wrong and blah, blah, blah." But, but they were panicked. They were spending $10 million and so
wow.
I think my friends and family and everybody knew years before, and I never lied. I never said I had a boyfriend, or I just didn't talk about my personal life. But then I think you're right, Jill. I hit a point where, there were too many, issues in the news like that I thought, I can't just say I'm for this anymore. I have to say I am this, because it makes a difference. In polling, they've showed that it makes a difference, and that's how we got marriage equality. That it was your favorite, Watergate lawyer, your favorite radio host, basketball star, football player. It's, your sister, your lawyer, your brother. It's that someone that was the biggest predicator of people being open to gay rights, is that they didn't realize they knew somebody and loved somebody that's gay, So anyway, yeah.
I think that is so important.
But we have no budget in radio, so I remember a friend was like, "Are you sure? Shouldn't you have like your people? Shouldn't you talk to your people?" I'm like, "I don't have people. I'm just going to say it." So I just went on the radio one morning and said, "Guess what? I'm gay."
Well, and it was powerful and impactful. And of course, I have to ask you, because since I've known you, I've tried to fix you up with no success. And
wait a minute, I don't remember any dates.
Well, that's why you told me, you gave me some parameters that I couldn't meet.
Well, you said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "You, but gay. Just get me one of you, but gay. Beautiful, smart."
So we didn't get there, but is there any news on that front? Is there anybody in your life that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I've been 2 years in lockdown, in COVID lockdown, and I currently live with a bunch of rats. A bunch of rats. So no, I'm afraid there's no news on that. I love that. I was going to say the morning I came out was funny that, in radio you're on for 3 hours and it's sometimes not the same audience in hour 3 as hour 1. And my producer said, "I think we should reset the topic." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm still gay. It's 6 minutes after the hour."
Well, I'm hoping someone listening who is in love with you already will contact you, and you'll find the woman of your dreams.
I'm not asking too much. Just someone wildly beautiful and smart and funny and warm and kind like Jill Winebanks. Come on.
I know there's someone out there waiting for you.
Gotta get that doppelganger.
I'm hoping. I want you to be. Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm about to die alone and be eaten by my dogs and a bunch of rats. So let's go, ladies. Hurry up.
No, but you do have loving, wonderful, wonderful dogs. They are adorable.
Thank you. You
they
too.
Are terrific,
you too.
I know. Mine's terrific. And
I posted a picture of when you were wearing a matching outfit that matched your dog. Yes, hugging him. So cute.
I do have a lot of Dalmatian paraphernalia and things around the room.
Except
you can't imagine.
Except you're the anti-Cruella.
Yes, I am, for sure. Although I did at one point own a Cruella coat.
Ooh.
It was a Christmas gift to me.
Oh.
And I was working at Motorola at the time, and the daycare center was in the building I worked in. And when I would walk in wearing my Dalmatian coat, the kids went berserk. They loved it. And if the outside was just like Dalmatian skin kind of stuff, but the inside was 101 Dalmatian pictures.
Oh my God.
And I would flash them the inside of my coat, and it was.
Oh my God, Victor,
it made my day.
Let's do this. We can do this on social media. She's the anti-Cruella DeVille. We'll do it for like dog rescue, and it'll be Jill in that coat going, "Save those puppies!"
I love that.
You'll have to do the voice of Cruella for sure.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for this. This was
most
fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. We've had a ball. I know our listeners will too, and I hope that they will tune in on a regular basis to the Stephanie Miller Show. It is a joy every day.
Aw,
so,
thank you, honey.
Guys,
So are you.
Listen.
And Victor, look at you, you little stem cell. You're just a little tiny baby stem cell.
He's going to have to meet you because he's now, he's not that far from you anymore. So,
well, before I go, let me just say, fight on for all to see. Our men fight on for victory, for all to see. Fight on. Ha ha ha.
And what about you, Victor? Are you going to have a retort?
I don't know my school's song, so I guess we'll have to leave it at that.
Oh no!
Which is quite embarrassing.
I win by default.
Exactly.
Then, so
I will give it to you. You can't win in football, but you can
put that
win
on your
this.
agenda, Victor.
All right.
You have to learn it for sure. And I am afraid to sing in public, so I won't sing the Fighting Illini song. But thank you so much, Stephanie Miller.
Honeys.
It's been a joy, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Of course, as always. Love you guys. Mwah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of iGen Politics with Stephanie Miller. We hope you'll tune in again next Wednesday for another episode of iGen Politics. Follow us wherever you follow your podcasts and subscribe on YouTube, and hopefully you'll leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, which keeps this show running. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.